The next class of submarine built by the Japanese were the 18 boats of the 1,115 surfaced and 1,447 submerged ton Row 35 class, also known as the Kai-Chu 6 type. They were built between October 1941 and November 1944. Remember how the Row 33s were prototypes? These were the boats they were prototypes for. As with other rowboats, they weren't meant to be long-range cruiser or fleet boats, just nice short-range interdictors, not fast or long-range, but filling the gaps. Doing the grunt work, not glamorous enough for the big guys. As it turned out, that grunt work mostly involved trying to interdict U.S. invasion forces around an island. This meant they were geographically chained and destined to try their luck against well-escorted forces they either had to try to engage at a time of the other guy's choosing or lose by forfeit. It didn't end well for them. Main armament was 4-bow 533mm tubes for 10 torpedoes. A single open 76mm deck gun was mounted forward of the sail. Propulsion on the surface was provided by 2 diesel engines which produced 4,200 horsepower that ran the 2 propellers and recharged the batteries for a surface speed of 19 knots. While submerged, they used their batteries to power 2 motors, which produced 1,200 horsepower for a top speed of 8 knots. Range on the surface was 5,000 nautical miles at 16 knots, and submerged they could do 45 nautical miles at 5 knots. Test diving depth was 75 meters. In July 1944, Row 41, 49, and 50 were fitted with types 13 and 22 radar. Row 35 completed post-commissioning workup in mid-July 1943 and headed south to reconnoiter Espiritu Santo. On the evening of August 25, 1943, southwest of the Santa Cruz Islands, she was found and sunk by the destroyer Patterson. Row 36 completed post-commissioning workup in early September 1943 and headed south to reconnoiter Espiritu Santo, then put into truck in late October. In the second half of December 1943, she again reconnoitered Espiritu Santo and again returned to truck. In mid-February 1944, when American carrier aircraft raided Truk, she was in port but not damaged, so took off to find the carrier group, but came up short, so returned to port. From late February to late March, she sailed to patrol the Marshalls, but couldn't get to any American invasion ships, so returned to Truk. Then, in mid-April, she returned to Japan for an overhaul. With her overhaul completed in early June, she headed to patrol around New Guinea, but when the American liberation of the Marianas started in the middle of the month, she was redirected there. East of Saipan, on June 13, 1944, she was found and sunk by the destroyer Melvin. Row 37 completed post-commissioning workup in late September 1943 and headed south to patrol around Espiritu Santo until putting into Truk in late November. Resupplied in early January 1944, she left Truk to again patrol around Espiritu Santo. Southeast of San Cristobal on January 22nd, shortly after sinking the oiler Cache, she was found and sunk by the destroyer Buchanan. Row 38 completed post-commissioning workup at the end of October 1943 and sailed to Truk. With the start of the American landings in the Gilberts in mid-November, she left Truk to patrol around Tarawa in an attempt to foil the American landing there. West of Tarawa on November 24, 1943, she was found and sunk by the destroyer Cotton. Row 39 completed post-commissioning workup at the end of December 1943 and sailed to Truk. With the American invasion of the Marshalls underway in late January 1944, she left Truk to patrol near Wochi. West of Wochi, on the evening of February 1, 1944, she was sunk by the destroyer Walker. Row 40 completed post-commissioning workup in mid-January 1944 and sailed to Truk. In mid-February, she left Truk to patrol the Marshalls. Northwest of Kwajalein on February 16, 1944, she was found and sunk by the destroyers Phelps and McDonough, along with the minesweeper Sage. Row 41 completed post-commissioning workup in early March 1944 and patrolled around Truk until late April. Next, she sailed from Truk to patrol around New Guinea, but was diverted to patrol around Saipan until mid-May when she returned to Truk. In the second half of May, she made several supply runs from Truk to Kusai and back to Truk. In the first half of June, she sailed to patrol off Jowett in the Marshalls, but was then diverted to patrol east of Saipan. Unable to interdict the American Liberation Force, she returned to Japan at the start of July for an overhaul. With that completed in mid-September, she sailed to patrol the Palaus, where on October 3rd, she spotted an escort carrier group built around St. Lo and Fanshawe Bay and managed to mortally wound the destroyer escort Shelton before returning to Japan in the middle of the month. Late in the month, she again sailed to try to attack the American landing at Leyte, but couldn't get in position, so returned to Japan in mid-November. Resupplied, in late December, she sailed to patrol off northern Luzon, but again couldn't get into a good firing position, so returned to Japan in late January 1945. In mid-March, she sailed to try to find and sink the already damaged Franklin, but was diverted to Okinawa, where the American pre-invasion had already started. On the evening of March 22, 1945, east of Okinawa, she was found, depth-charged, gunned, then rammed to sinking by the destroyer Haggard. Row 42 completed post-commissioning workup at the start of December 1943 and headed south to patrol off Espiritu Santo until late January 1944, when she put into Truk. After a patrol around Kusai, in late February, she sailed to patrol the Marshalls until the end of March, when she again returned to Truk, and then went on to Japan for an overhaul, arriving in late April. With her overhaul completed in mid-May, she left Japan to reconnoiter the Marshalls. East of Roe, on the evening of June 10, 1944, she was found and sunk by the destroyer escort Bangust and using Hedgehog. Row 43 completed post-commissioning workup in mid-March 1944 and headed for Truk. In transit, she suffered a diving tank casualty, which sent her back to Japan for repairs, arriving in mid-April. With repairs completed in early June, she left port to patrol the Marianas, but off Rota on the evening of June 16th, she was found by the destroyer Robinson and Connie and seriously damaged herself when she exceeded her test depth to escape, again sending her back to Japan for repairs. As fixed as she was getting, in mid-September, she sailed to patrol southeast of Palau, but returned to Japan in mid-October. Resupplied, in mid-October, she sailed to patrol the San Bernardino Strait until mid-November, when she returned to Japan. Resupplied again, in early December, she sailed to patrol east of Luzon until early January 1945, when she returned to Japan. With her overhaul completed in mid-February, she left Japan to patrol off Iwo Jima. Northwest of Iwo Jima, in the pre-dawn hours of February 26, 1945, she was found by an Avenger from the escort carrier Anzio and sunk by a Fido. Row 44 completed post-commissioning workup in late December 1943 and after a stop at Truk headed south to patrol off Espiritu Santo until mid-February 1944, when the returning sub was ordered to extend her patrol by taking up station north of Truk until late February, when she finally put into Truk to resupply. In March, she sailed to reconnoiter Majuro and then returned to Truk at the end of the month. She was in port in Truk in April when a series of bomber raids hit the port. Despite submerging, she was damaged badly enough she had to return to Japan for repairs, arriving at the end of the month. With repairs completed in mid-May, she left Japan and sailed to patrol the Marianas and then continued on to reconnoiter Inuitak. East of Inuitak, in the pre-dawn hours of June 16, 1944, she was found by the destroyer escort Burden R. Hastings and sunk. Row 45 completed post-commissioning workup in mid-April 1944 and headed to Truk. On the morning of April 29, 1944, Task Force 58 started a 2-day raid on the island, and Row 45 put to sea to try to intercept it. The next morning, south of Truk, as the task force was starting day 2 of the raid, the destroyers McDonough and Stephen Potter sunk her with a Hellcat observing overhead. Row 46 completed post-commissioning work and repairs from colliding with I-46 while training in late June 1944 and headed to Saipan to patrol there. While there, in early July, she was spotted and damaged by a patrol plane and had to return to Japan for repairs. With repairs completed in mid-September, she sailed to reconnoiter Ulithi Harbor in preparation for the planned upcoming Kaitan attack and then returned to Japan in mid-October. Later that month, she sailed to patrol east of the Philippines as part of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, but returned to Japan in late December, only having saved a downed pilot. Resupplied in early January 1945, she sailed to patrol off western Luzon, but was reassigned to run supplies from Formosa to Luzon, picking up pilots there and returned them to Japan, arriving back in port in mid-February. Again resupplied in mid-March, she sailed to patrol around Okinawa. Near Okinawa, on April 29, 1945, an Avenger from the escort carrier Tulagi found and sunk her. Row 47 completed post-commissioning workup in late March 1944 and left port to patrol east of Palau until returning in mid-April. Following an overhaul from mid-June to mid-July, she patrolled near Saipan in support of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, but returned to port having been unable to attack anything. Again resupplied, in mid-September, she left port to attack the American force invading the Palaus. Northeast of Palau, on the morning of September 26, 1944, she was found and sunk by the destroyer escort McCoy Reynolds using Hedgehog. Row 48 completed post-commissioning workup in early July 1944 and sailed to attack the American force liberating the Marianas. East of Saipan, in the pre-dawn hours of July 19, 1944, she was found and sunk by the destroyer escort Wyman using Hedgehog. Row 49 completed post-commissioning workup in mid-November 1944 and sailed to patrol east of Luzon, but damaged her sonar in a storm and had to return to port for repairs. With repairs completed at the start of January 1945, she sailed to patrol west of Luzon, returning home at the end of the month. With things spooling up in the area, in mid-March, she headed to patrol off Okinawa. In the pre-dawn hours of April 5, 1945, off Kume Island, she was found and sunk by the destroyer Hudson. Row 50 completed post-commissioning workup and sailed to patrol east of Luzon in mid-November 1944. It was a frustrating first showing, marked by being attacked by a friendly float plane and an attack on USS Washington foiled by a torpedo that prematured, so she returned to Japan in late December. After resupply, in late January 1945, she again sailed to patrol off eastern Luzon. While patrolling there, in early February, she was found and damaged by the destroyer Tisdale before escaping. Southeast of Surigao Strait, on February 10th, she managed to mortally wound an LST, but in return suffered a brutal depth charging from the escort destroyer Isherwood that sent her limping back to Japan for repairs. With repairs completed in the second half of April, she patrolled near Okinawa, then returned to port for more repairs. Finally fully repaired, at the end of May, she sailed to patrol east of Formosa, but was then redirected to patrol the Ulithi-Okinawa route before returning to Japan in early July. She was still in port when the war ended, and post-war was scuttled off Goto Island. Wait, we got a survivor? Okay. Row 51 through 54 were canceled to make room for the I-201 class. More on them later. Row 55 completed post-commissioning workup in late January 1945 and sailed to patrol west of Luzon. West of Luzon, on the evening of February 7, 1945, she was found and sunk by the destroyer escort Thomas using Hedgehog.
Row 56 completed post-commissioning workup in mid-March 1945 and sailed to patrol around Okinawa. West of Okinawa on April 9, 1945, she was found and sunk by the destroyers Mertz and Monson.